Hi folks, so exciting times. We're beginning A-level statistics, or stats as we like to call it when we want to make it sound really exciting. And we're going to begin with a few lessons on something called data collection. If you look behind me, today is just going to be about making sure we really understand what's meant behind the three words population, sample and census. So before you go any further, write down your own definition for each of those, please. They could well be a 1-mark question that you have to face in a year or so's time. So starting off with population, it's the whole set of items that are of interest. So e.g. all the students in a year group, or school. It could be, couldn't it? Another thing, it could be all the biscuits bought by a supermarket. Today's biscuit, by the way, is going to be a good old Golden Crunch cream to start off a whole new topic for a whole new year with. I think a very difficult one to be beaten. Anyway, whilst I polish that off, let's have a little think about samples. So a sample is a subset of the population. So a subset of the population from which we can make conclusions, can be extrapolated, so we can about the whole population. So it may be that they've had some complaints about the biscuits that they've been selling. So in order to find out what's going on, they may say, right, we've got 30 packets of these in the store. We're going to test randomly 3 of them, and if all 3 of those are absolutely fine, then we're going to assume that the rest should be fine, and maybe it was just a freak packet that was a problem. And the last word that we had was a census. So a census is when we get results on the whole population. So it's where the whole population is considered in the same way that a sample has been. So it may be a questionnaire, it may be testing, and testing is not very good for a census if you're talking about biscuits, because the only way to test the census would be to eat all of them, which has certain calorific problems, and it means that you can't sell any of the biscuits anymore because there aren't any left. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some questions involving those 3 words and how they might come up. Right, here's our first example. I suggest very strongly that you copy the example down and have a go at it before then popping in my answer as well if it varies much from yours. So if a supermarket wants to test a delivery of avocados for ripeness by cutting them in half, why shouldn't they test all the avocados? Quite simply because they won't have any left to sell. Yeah, and that's the problem with doing a census with anything where you have to destroy it in order to test it, because they're... Okay, now the next one's quite simple too. The supermarket tests a sample of 5 avocados and finds 4 of them are ripe. They estimate that 80% of the avocados in the delivery are ripe. Why? because 4 out of 5 is 80%, isn't it? Suggest one way the supermarket could improve their estimate. There's only one answer to this. Test more avocados. The bigger your sample size, the more accurate your extrapolations will be. That's simple. Okay, moving on to our next example. There you go. Pause the video and give this one a go. So, what is meant by a census? It's when every member of the population is considered or questioned or tested. You don't have to write all of those three things. The important thing is that you're saying it's all of the every single part of the population is being considered. So one advantage and one disadvantage to the school of using a census. So one advantage, they should get a really accurate idea of what all the dietary requirements are. Should be 100% accurate. The disadvantage, there are two main ones, and they're very much linked. One is it's more time consuming, more effort, and therefore it could have a cost implication as well. So more expensive and takes longer. Those are the two you need. So your answer should look something like this. Here's a new problem. Give this a go. So a factory's got safety harnesses, and the buyer wishes to know that the load at which the harness breaks exceeds a certain figure. Why should a census not be a good idea for this purpose? In order to know when the harness breaks, it needs to be tested to the point at which it's no longer a harness because it's broken. So that's why. So all of the harnesses would be destroyed. So our next question is, the factory tests 4 harnesses and the load for breaking is recorded: 320 kilograms, 260, 240 and 180. Factory claims the harnesses are safe for loads up to 250 kilograms. Use the sample data to comment on this claim. Now it's perfectly fine to say that half of them have broken, half of the sample are not safe up to 250, but they do like you to use words that have a bit more to do with data and averages in there. So try and think of something you could do with that. So this is what I came up with. The median is 250 kilograms because halfway in the middle there, halfway between those two, showing that half of the harnesses do not live up to the factory's claim. The claim is wrong. Suggest one way in which the company can improve their prediction. Well, you might just want to write down, there's a couple of ways you could go on it, I think. You could say that, they could say that instead of being safe for loads up to 250 kilograms, they might say it's safe for loads up to 175 kilograms. But the best thing to do always is to test more harnesses, and then they've got more data that they can use to make a more justifiable claim. Right, so this is the last question for today's lesson, so pause the video and have a go at all 3 of them before I go through what I would do. Right, so one reason they shouldn't take a census is it might take a long time. Do you know, it would actually be okay just to say it would be difficult. And it would be expensive. Suggest a suitable sampling frame. Now, we haven't talked about that. So what might that mean? It means what you're going to need to use in order to get a sample. So and I'm going to put, in the book it just says a list, but actually a numbered list of the residents. So you need to know who all the residents are. When you've got a numbered list, then we can look at taking a sample from that. Identify the sampling units. Well, what does the word unit mean? It means ones, doesn't it? So what is one thing from the sample? It's one resident, isn't it? So individual residents. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that more than I did. We're going to be moving on to sampling next time, so looking forward to seeing you then. Cheerio, folks.